public.
Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee and a member of the House Judiciary Committee, a good friend to our show here. So a very good day to you, sir. And you just heard Congressman Muller, also Congressman Schiff, say that Whitaker is going to be held accountable, subpoenaed if he interferes with the special counsel's investigation. What is the first issue that Whitaker could be questioned about?
Well, I think right now we can question the basics of his appointment, and that would be a legal action the Senate would have to lead. But in January, I think we can look into that if he's still there, and according to the testimony or statements of Lindsey Graham, they expect that they won't have a nominee until after the first of the year, so Whitaker will still be around. There's no question but that Whitaker was not put in because of his legal acumen, because of his sterling resume, because neither have been proficient or highlighted or something to be commended and recommend him for the post. He's there because he's basically, he's Donald Trump's Roy Cohn. He's a bulldog to go in there and to try to do havoc with the Mueller investigation, which he talked about openly on CNN when he was a talking head for the administration.
Yeah, well, here's something interesting to that point. There's a recent New York Times report which found that Whitaker had interviewed for a position on the president's legal team as a, quote, attack dog against the special counsel. So is questioning Whitaker on his conversations that he had with the president about the Mueller investigation a top priority? And by the way, do we even know if they have in fact spoken? Because the president, as you know, said on Fox last month that he knows Whitaker. 2 days ago, he said he doesn't know Whitaker. So which is it?
Well, I think Kellyanne Conway parsed some statements and said that, of course, he knows him, but he doesn't know him like they're best friends. So I guess there are degrees of know in Trumpism, and you have to parse his words to finally claim that he's telling the truth. Obviously, he knows him. He was put in there as Sessions' chief of staff because there was the hope and plan to get rid of Sessions and to put this man in charge. And his purpose is to be the attack dog, the hatchet man, and that's what he's going to do. The Mueller investigation's in jeopardy. I had filed a bill, and it's on the desk, to protect Mueller, similar to what the Senate had passed out of committee, and Mitch McConnell never came to a vote, that said he couldn't be fired except for cause. And if he was fired for other than cause, that he would have a right to go to a 3-judge federal panel in D.C. and seek reinstatement. It's important that we protect Mr. Mueller and his investigation because that's the people's information. The people should know if their election and presidential election was interfered with by the Russians, and if the president and his campaign team or family worked with the Russians to collude to affect our elections. And I think that the president's action shows that he knows what he did, and I think he's acting like a guilty man and wants to see that that report never sees the light of day.
Let's say that Robert Mueller were to be fired. Is there anything that would prevent him from speaking about what he knew, the things that he uncovered? This is a man, we have to remind people, who has gone completely silent. He has not addressed anything. So the power of a man like this to take to the press and speak about what he knows, don't you think that could be incredibly persuasive and compelling in an interview like that?
Unquestionably, but I don't think he would go to an interview with the press, but I think if he was subpoenaed before the Judiciary Committee, that he would comply with that subpoena, and then if asked questions, I think that he would tell what he knows and testify. It's one thing about coming before a congressional committee, and when we, as the majority, we can subpoena and have his testimony, and another thing about going to a media source.
Okay. Let's talk about the president's taxes. Do you think that Democrats should try to force the president to give up his tax return? What do you think you would find?
Well, I think unquestionably we have the right to do it. The Ways and Means Committee can see the tax returns of any individual, and there was an effort to get them released. Bill Pascrell of New Jersey made several efforts to get the House to vote to have his taxes brought forward. Richie Neal will be the chairman of that committee, and I feel sure he'll want to see them. And the public has a right to know. Every president, and it's been not by law but by tradition, has released their taxes so the American public will see what conflicts they might have. Most American presidents have put their funds in a blind trust. Trump has not put his funds in a blind trust. In fact, He, I'm sure, knows every single dollar that's spent at the Trump Hotel and the Trump Tower by the Saudis, by the Qataris, by the Chinese, and all of them have an effect on his policy. Our foreign policy is not supposed to be influenced by foreign potentates or princes, as the Constitution addresses in the Emoluments Clause. And anytime a president would do business with a foreign power, according to the Constitution, they're supposed to come to Congress and ask for permission, partly to give notice and partly to get permission. Trump has not done that at all. And Norm Eisen and people from CREW, which is a ethics organization, have brought a lawsuit, which Mr. Blumenthal and other members of the Senate and the House, including me, are members of, that's going forward in Washington to try to see what he has been hiding from the public and what, if any, effect it's had on our decisions in foreign policy.
Yeah.
You know, the Khashoggi killing was awful. We're not responding, I think, because I think we'll find that the Saudis and the Trumps have close business ties. And the Saudis do rent in Trump. I believe the Chinese, and I think it's the Saudis, it might be the Qataris, have buildings and leases in Trump Tower, but the Saudis have had a lot of meetings at the Trump Hotel and a lot of expenses they've spent there. But the Emoluments Clause should be looked into. His tax be looked into, and I think his taxes will show that he didn't pay much in the way of taxes. You know, I thought about it this morning. He's got enough chutzpah. He might have tried to get a credit. He might have tried to get say that the government owed him money. It certainly is going to show he's not a charitable individual, for he used a charitable foundation in New York, which is being investigated for fraud, and which made payments to Pam Bondi of Florida. They paid her a political contribution out of a charitable fund, which is illegal, and that's a lady he's considering, apparently, for being the United States Attorney General.
Yeah.
The Attorney General's office should be above reproach.
Lots to investigate, rather, relative to emoluments and other related financial issues, certainly. But the House Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, has said she's not interested in moving to impeach the president. And then, according to an NBC News exit poll that was conducted this week on Election Day, a majority of the nation believes Congress should not impeach the president. And Congressman, look, I know you've introduced articles of impeachment. We've talked about this many times on this show. Now that your party holds the majority, is this something you will pursue?
That's something I've thought about very much. I put my stake in the ground, and it was forced on me by Charlottesville. And when he said there were good people on both sides, neo-Nazis and Klansmen, I had no choice, in my opinion, but to go forth what I had felt in my heart for months, that this president had committed impeachable conduct. I was proud to file that article of impeachment. We've got 18 sponsors. I've worked it and worked it and worked it, but we only had 18 sponsors. It's got to be tried by the Senate. There's one thing about knowing that somebody and feeling somebody has committed an impeachable offense, which I do, and another thing about being in leadership and working with the leadership of your party. And I will look to Nadler, I will look to Leader Pelosi, and try to work within the framework of what they highlight as far as our goals. In 2006, when I was elected, big Democratic year, we had what we called 6 for 06, and we had 6 priorities, and they included better pay for women, equal pay. It included minimum wage. There were economic bread and butter issues that we put our minds to and we passed. I think Leader Pelosi will have the similar 6 for 06 for this class of 18. We need to concentrate on that. We need to do investigations. We need to do oversight. And this president's conduct is such that he will lead us to see that he has probably done more harm and more questionable, probably illegal or impeachable offenses. And as he does that, since impeachment is part of the Constitution and it's the duty of the House Judiciary Committee to consider it, it will have to be considered. And if the facts that are produced by the Muller report or by his continued conduct warrant it, we will have no choice but to look at impeachment. But that's because it's on the table, it's in the Constitution, and we have a duty to look at it. But it shouldn't be day one. It won't be day one. The first thing we're going to do is protect people with pre-existing conditions, try to work on passing jobs bills, and try to clean up the swamp that he has really created. He's a swamp builder. He's Okeechobee Swamp, or Okeechobee, or whatever it is.
Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen from Tennessee, thank you for joining me, sir.